of all my own experience, but the most immediate one was 2 years ago. I was in the hospital with double pneumonia, and I was practically unconscious. And a doctor came in, and you know what doctors do in a hospital. They say, "What can I do for you?" His question was, "Sir, can you help me?" I was a bit surprised. Successful, not less so. Well, at the moment, I was not a good advertisement for success. I was practically unconscious on this hospital bed. I didn't convince him. And the next day I thought, well, I must write a correspondence course about this. Now, my experience is based on several things. One is, when I had to begin working on my own, I had a rich father, but he never gave me a dime because he didn't believe in what I was doing. So really I had no help from anybody and no income. And I resolved absolutely, in spite of anything and everything, I would be dharmic. I would always tell the truth. I would always do what was right, even if it looked as if we would fail. A very good example was about 8 years into our existence, we had a forest fire. At Ananda Village in California, the forest fires are a serious thing. And it demolished 21 of our 22 homes, 450 acres of land. It was a devastating thing. And our neighbors phoned us with great excitement to say, we have learned that the cause of the fire was a faulty spark arrestor on a government vehicle. We can sue the county and get all our money back. And they got their money back, but I wrote a letter to the supervisors and I said, I know that you're a little concerned about us because we were the biggest losers. I said, I just want you to know that we will not be suing. I think they waited for a long time for the other shoe to fall, but it never did. I meant it. I would rather fail than succeed in the wrong way. It did not seem right to take our bad fortune out on our neighbors because they would have had to increase the taxes and everything to cover this. And I have always very rigidly adhered to this principle. That does not mean I have been somebody you could walk over easily. I found, for example, when I was building the first land at our retreat in California, that I had run out of money, and I had no way of getting more money without going out and teaching classes and so on. That's how I raised all of it. And I always felt that it was right to charge for these things. If they're going to help other people, they should know that it's important. I know when I took singing lessons, I was 18 years old, and my teacher, she was an old woman, and she said, the lessons will be $5 each. She said, it's not that I need the money, you need to pay it. And I found that she was right, because I had to take her seriously. I never would ask my father to help me, and so I went out and got a job waiting tables. In America, people do all kinds of work, and it's considered dignified and not beneath you. And I got the money I needed to pay for my lessons, and this was the right way to do it. Well, for the same reason I charged for my classes, because I was going to use the money for a good reason. And I'll tell you another thing there, that I was giving evening satsangs for people in Redwood City, and there was a little basket there, and they could put money in if they wanted to and not if they didn't want to, and I got enough money to pay for my petrol, but nothing more. And I didn't care. I've never cared about money. However, I've written a course on the subject, which I consider to be important, and as I say, based on my experience. Well, anyway, by always adhering to what was true, I succeeded in meeting every test. In this case, when I said that I couldn't pay, I arranged with all the people that I owed money to pay them each $500 every month, and they agreed. But then one person, a lumber company, got greedy. And he decided that he would put a lien on the property. I had been a monk all my adult life. I didn't even know what a lien was. I was quite ignorant, but I found out quickly. And the next thing I got was a letter saying that if I didn't pay them all the money I owed in 2 weeks, they would foreclose on me. Well, I didn't know the word foreclose either. However, I quickly found that out too, and I called the owner, and he said, well, you see, you got to be practical. Practical means greedy in that language. I didn't agree. So I went to the lawyer, and he says, what an agreement. He showed it to me in writing. I had a verbal agreement. I thought that was an honorable thing. It didn't work. So I know that God takes care of me. He has done so in amazing ways. That week, I went to give a slideshow in Palo Alto, and some pictures I had taken in India. And afterwards, one young man came out to my car with me, and he said, you know, I like what you were doing. Would you accept donations? And I said, well, yes. And I figured he would give me maybe $5, $10. He stooped over the hood of the car and wrote me a check for $3,000. Well, that was enough to pay this lumberman. And I called the lumberman. I said, look, I have all the money you need, but I will not pay you until you have incurred all the legal fees you can. Then I will come in at the last minute and pay it off. And he said, oh, then I'll give you a big discount if you pay now. So he dug a pit for me and fell into it himself. But sometimes you have to be firm like that with people of that consciousness. Also, it was a stupid thing for him to do, because now we have a whole village and many buildings. We could have gone to him for all our lumber, but instead we have avoided him because he was not honorable with us. And this is a very important point to remember in doing business, that it's not just a one-time sale. If people find that you are honorable, that you are there to help them and not just help themselves, they're much more likely to stay with you. Now, grant you might make a quick sale, but your reputation gradually will spread to other people. And if you are good to them and serviceful to them, and they come to your shop, let's say, and you say, well, we don't have what you want, but that shop over there does, you might lose that sale, but you'd have lost it anyway if you don't have what they want. They will remember that you were honest. Honesty builds over a period of time. And one thing that really has distressed me in India, and I know it exists all over the world, but too many people willing to take the shortcut to success, telling a lie, not being wholly dharmic. I believe, and I want especially to bring this teaching here to India, because India is, honestly, India is the guru of the world. For many, many thousands of years, she has been that. And if you act in ways that can teach Dharma to other people by example, that will make an impact on people. But now, India, unfortunately, has a reputation for saying whatever will work. And I want very much to stress that what works today, if the customer goes away unhappy, will not work tomorrow. You want to build up a customer base. And you know, in our shop we have a East-West bookstore in Palo Alto. Actually, it's in Mountain View now. And I've said to them, look, the most important thing is to make friends with the customers. If they buy a book or don't buy a book is secondary. Many people now come to our shop just because they like to be there. They like the people. They may buy something, they may not, but we have succeeded where many bookstores in America have gone under. So these are very important things, that your job in business is above all service. Not service to yourself, service to others. It's understood that you're there to help make a living, but the more people feel that you are there to serve them, the more they will appreciate it and work with you. So I have one of my lessons is called practicality. the importance of practicality. This is the most practical thing of all because it works. Like that lumberman, he said, well, you see, we got to be practical. He was not practical. He lost my custom and that of many other people afterwards. And he may not have known that we would succeed as much as we have. But at any rate, it showed a mental bias toward not being completely honorable. So if you, and another thing that is very important, I remember many years ago, I used to, before I came to my guru, want to be a playwright, and I wrote a play, and it was called The Song of the Sadhu, and it was set in India. And so I asked a Bengali friend of mine who was a student in college if I could borrow a dhoti from him. So I went and borrowed a dhoti. Well, there was a friend of his there in the apartment. And as I was leaving, this friend said I would definitely be there. Well, he didn't know where there was, he didn't know when the thing would be, he didn't know what it would be. I was absolutely certain he would not be there. And of course he wasn't there. So why say definitely? Truthfully, when I hear people say I will definitely do it, it makes me suspicious. If they say I will do it, that's all you need to do is say I will do it. When you say definitely, and so truth is an extremely important thing, and it may sometimes be inconvenient, but I have found from long experience, because I have absolutely followed Dharma, and there were times, you know, I was sued by an organization. They ended up spending $50 million. That's a lot of money. Think how much money that's, something like 250 crores. It's unbelievable. And trying to destroy me. We didn't have much money. It was really a test for us. But they didn't do right things. They were wrong in many ways. We just said if we fail, okay, but we will be dharmic. Winning was it was never the issue with me. Being dharmic was because I always believed very firmly, if everything I have done is a failure, God will take care of me, and He has. I'll tell you a very interesting story about how He does take care of you if you consciously put your life in His hands. Back in 1972, I visited India again. I lived here from 58 to 62, then I came here on a visit. And I went from Delhi to Calcutta by plane. There was a man in Bhubaneswar who was a doctor, and a friend of mine, he'd studied in UC Davis in California, and I wanted to see him, and my one regret in going to Calcutta was that he would not, I didn't have his address, I couldn't find him. Anyway, I landed in Calcutta, I had this little thought in my mind, and the people who were supposed to come meet me weren't there. And what do you do when somebody's supposed to meet you and you rush to the nearest phone, you think, what do I do? I had put this trip in Divine Mother's hands. I said, Divine Mother, what do you have in mind? The moment I stopped and prayed and didn't get anxious, somebody stopped in front of me. And he said, what is your good name? And I told him. He said, oh, I've been longing to meet you. I've seen your picture. And it's a friend of mine called Dr. Mishra who has your picture, and I've been wanting you. So I said, oh, Dr. Mishra from Bhubaneswar? He said, yes. I said, well, I'd like to know where he is. Can you give me his address? And he said, no need to. He's just in Calcutta right now, and I have come to Calcutta to see him. So the seeming disaster of my friends not appearing, they were held up in traffic and all those things. But as it turned out, that night there were no hotels in Calcutta. And I got to stay with Dr. Mishra. This I have seen happen so many times that I can speak with great faith that if you sincerely give your life to God, put your life in His hands, and in every detail, offer it to Him, ask Him what do you want, ask Him what is right for you. I've seen it happen again and again. There was a time in our village which they decided they needed money for improvement of what we call downtown Ananda, which is really a euphemism, but anyway, we had sort of a meeting, and everybody was supposed to offer to pledge $5 for a plant, $10 for a bush, that sort of thing. There was one thing there that wanted, I forget, I think it was $2,000 for improvement of the roads. And I thought, well, nobody's going to pledge that, so I will pledge it. I didn't have any money. And the other day at the mall, somebody asked me my income. I said 0. But I just don't want money. But anyway, I still pledged it. I figured, well, Divine Mother, you will take care of me. And I had 2 weeks to give that money. I still didn't have it. I wasn't at all anxious. And I woke up in the morning and went downstairs, and there was a little envelope under my door. Somebody who didn't know that I needed that money because I had kept my pledge a secret, enclosed a check for $2,000 and said that I want to do this in memory of my mother who died, and just in memory of her, to thank you for all that you have done for me. So I had my $2,000. I've seen this happen so many times that I'm absolutely convinced there is a law involved, and I don't think that God loves me because of my blue eyes. I think He loves me as He loves all of us. He's waiting for us to love Him. That the most practical thing in life is to follow the path of Dharma. And you have a duty to your country to give the world the idea that Yata Dharma Tata Jaya. It is the truth. Now again and again you will see that you will be tempted. But if you say, no, I will stay to truth. If I fail even, I will stay loyal to God and to truth. You will find that maybe this will fail because you didn't make that sale, that you said, well, this is not the best product, you can get a better one there. That may be a little stretching it, I don't know. But nonetheless, you will find that over a long period of time, there is a law at work here. This universe is not, this floor is not solid. Science has proved that it's frozen energy at a rate of vibration that makes it seem solid. But your own ego is not a separate thing from the infinite. We are all manifestations of Brahman. And our duty is to live more in that. Now, God does not let you down. If you live for Him, He does take care of you. I'm not saying you should all become sannyasis, but I do suggest that you give your work to God and pray a little bit every morning before you start your work. Say, God, whatever happens is your will, and I'm here to serve you above all. And then to serve you and all my customers. And in this way, you will gain a reputation for integrity, which is about the most important reputation one can have in business. And people will go to you. So that's all I have to say today. And it took me a year and a half to write this course. And I thought that I would begin to peter out. But it got stronger and stronger. And the last lesson is the longest and the most full of things. So I feel very pleased and very grateful to God for having used me as His channel for these deep teachings. They are not just for success, for leadership. I had to start Ananda as an unknown person. This was the hippie era in San Francisco. And people were very independent and very used to listening to anybody over 30, and I was over 40. And so it was not so easy to get them to do what I wanted, but I never said, you must do it. I said, here are the reasons for it. I could always say, look, I was with Yogananda, I followed these teachings for so many years, I know what I'm talking about, how could you know what you're talking about as well as I do? I had a perfect right to say that. I never said it. I said, look, here are the reasons. It makes sense, doesn't it? And people who understood followed, and people who didn't, it didn't bother me. But one thing I did do, and I think it's well worth remembering, I never gave energy to the negative people. I gave energy to those who wanted to work with me. The other would have been just wasted energy. You talk to these people hour after hour after hour, and in the end they slip away anyway. Work with the people who are with you, and gradually that will grow into a strong core of people. There was one time there where, first of all, I got word that we had two properties. One was at the farm, where mostly couples lived, one at the retreat where mostly single people lived. And the farm decided to call me on the carpet. Well, you have to be practical. I wasn't going to let them put me at a disadvantage. When I heard that they wanted to call me on the carpet, I called them. I called all of them together. I said, I listed all their complaints. And I said, what do we do about it? Well, they were completely at a disadvantage then, because I was asking them to solve it instead of their telling me I had to solve it. Then, finally, I had to say to them, look, I don't ask much of you, but I do have to say that as the founder of this place, if I speak strongly about something, I want you either to listen to me or I will leave. I'm perfectly happy to leave. I said I could leave today and never look back. And I was not stupid. I knew that I had the majority on my side. I would not have had this confrontation. That is, you have to be practical too. But I knew that most people were with me, and so when I gave them this confrontation, 50 of them left, but it was no problem. Got rid of a lot of headaches that we had. And so in addition to having ideals, as my guru said to me, you must be practical in your idealism. And I had put a lot of energy, and I had the idea to start communities when I was 15, so I did it a long time. But I wasn't going to play gamble. I don't believe in gambling. And yet my whole life has been a gamble, in the sense that I have done that which I felt was right and was what God wanted. And so in this practicality, I think you also have to be practical in a human way. Remember, an organization of people is always people. And you have to learn how to deal with people. That means you have to do those things which please not just you, but will please them. Ask them. If it makes sense to them, fine. If it doesn't, stay with those who don't. You can't be firing people left and right. But you know, if you understand people better, you will find that many times a seeming opposition doesn't exist. So always look for the bond between their reality and your reality. Often there's something that will work there. You know, Rajarshi Janakananda was Yogananda's most advanced disciple spiritually. He was also a very rich man. And he would sit at board meetings. He was on the board of several directorships. And these people of the directors would be fighting back and forth over something. He would just listen, and after a while he would say, well, it seems to me what we are saying is. And they always agreed. You find that point, instead of don't be confrontational, find that point between the two where the two will work together. Another thing very important is that it depends on your energy. You have to be high energy to succeed. Success is not something the gods drop into your lap. You have to put out the energy, but it must be, you don't want to force other people to be energetic, but you should be energetic. I think I can say I have been energetic. I've written over 400 pieces of music and built several communities in the world, and it has taken a certain amount of energy. But I've never been the kind of leaders as you do it. I said, okay, I'll do it. And other people have pitched in and they say, no, don't do everything. And more I have a team that works well. Now, one thing that I have learned in leadership is that it isn't so much what people do as the spirit with which they do it. If their spirit is right, then I'm not so concerned about what they're doing, because I know it'll work out in the end. Usually, I know that Peter Caddy at Findhorn used to insist on deciding himself where the flowers should be placed on the table in the dining room. Well, that's just too fussy. A leader should not do that. A leader should, above all, develop leadership in other people. You should give them responsibility, And if they don't keep it, then give it to people who do carry it. But don't make leaders of people who want to be leaders. Make leaders who want to serve. And if you give them that opportunity to serve and to be creative in their way, never squelch creativity. Try always to steer it in a good way. Sometimes you have to let people be creative in their way, knowing that it won't work. I have to say this has happened to me quite a few times. They've had an idea which they've counterposed to some idea of mine, and I've said, well, okay, let's give it a try. Because then their energy is in it and behind it. And if it doesn't work, which usually it doesn't, because I have good intuition in these things, but if it doesn't work, they will gradually come around to doing it in a way that will work. No harm. Making a few mistakes is not a bad thing. You know, there's a very famous, I don't know if it was Carnegie, Andrew Carnegie, it may have been, who said that he owed his success to allowing people to make their own mistakes. Naturally, if you're the leader, you probably have a lot more experience than they. How did you get your experience? By trial and error. So don't be afraid if they make mistakes. Don't ever shout at them and you say, you fool. Never call anybody that. Just always try to help them, and by a lot of patience. I think that this is the quality more important in a leader than any other quality. To be patient with people as they are. They will never be anything but what they are, so work with them as they are. You can't help them. They can't help themselves. So with that kind of patience, you can win a team. I have a team all over the world. Somebody, when I left Italy to come here, the head of a large company that publishes some of my books said that he's crazy, leaving Italy. It wasn't bad at all. He has the kind of management style where if he's not doing it, nobody can do it. I have left people in charge there. I know their decisions are good. I've seen their decisions and agreed with them, and so I felt free to come here. And I've tried here to, I'm an old man, I can't be doing everything. These people make the decisions. And I'm there to see, does it work? But they're very good. And so I have seen we have 8 communities in America, Italy. Now we're trying to start one here. And I would like also, just in closing, to say that I think it's extremely important. You know, when William the Conqueror conquered England, he had a country that was separate from Europe. It was possible for him and his heir to build England in a way that they could not have done with a country in Europe, where all these kings were fighting and trying to invade and take money. England was separate enough so that they could concentrate on it. In this life, Yogananda said too, that in order to get these teachings really across, we need to have a group of people who live these teachings. And we have about 1,000 people living them in different communities. If we were to take each of those people and send them to a different city to share these ideas, it would not have the same impact. People would end up asking, well, why are you so peaceful when everybody else is all upset? And he could say, well, I meditate. And they say, well, because they're not ready to meditate, they'll say, you're just a special kind of person. But it's not true. Somebody came to our community a few years ago and said to me that, he said, you have some wonderful people here. I said, listen, if you saw 1 or 2 people, you could say they are wonderful people. When you see everybody like this, you have to say that it's what they're doing. Now, I am very deeply hopeful of being able to start a community in India too. I know that the family is a very important element in India. It was so also in Italy, maybe stronger in India. But in the beginning, people had their own family. They would come to us and then go back to their family. But now in Italy, they've come to see that we are their family. And I'd like to see that happen here too, because, you know, what is a family? You look at them and with just the hard light of day, and you see brother suing brother, widow not being properly taken care of. You see so many problems in families. We don't have problems like that. You'd have to wait a long time before finding somebody even raising his voice to somebody. And yet, in that harmony, we're able to do so much, and it's also practical. Come back to this point of practicality. We had a fire in a shop of ours, a health food store, and it would have caused almost anybody simply to have to give up. But we had the base there, financial base, to be able to support them until we were able to get that shop going again. Well, that doesn't happen to the average person. If his store is gutted, he doesn't know what to do. Here, we can carry these things on when you have a large base. Somebody loses a job. We can help him until he finds a job. We can help him to find a job. There is so much more strength in numbers, especially when they're all there trying to help each other. In our community, the question we ask first is, what do God and Guru want? And what is right? And in asking that question, we find always we just go the straight line. Many of the communities that started in those days when I started Ananda, I would say that almost all failed. There may be one or two successes, but very few. Thousands failed. We succeeded because we had common sense, practicality, and dharma. So I'll turn it over to you, and thank you all. I'm happy to be here.